Hey, what's up? MKBHD here. Okay, so now that's December, we're rounding out the year, the annual smartphone awards are coming up, so I gotta make sure I've seen like every smartphone that's come out during the year 2020. So one of the last ones to come across my desk is this guy. This is the Royole FlexPi 2. Now, every year I have a couple categories for those awards. One of them is the bust of the year for the worst smartphone that comes out, and the first FlexPi was a candidate for that. But I also always have a most improved category. And believe it or not, this FlexPi 2, just based on my usage of it so far and what I've seen, is actually a candidate for the most improved award. That being said, I would still never recommend this. In fact, playing with this phone led me to the logical conclusion that among all of the alternate form factor stuff we've seen lately, by alternate form factor, I mean not like a regular phone, but the swiveling ones and the folding and the flipping and the rollables and all that stuff. Among all of these new alternate form factors, this folding out screen version, as cool as it can look, is not the way to go. This phone, this FlexPi 2, had to change a lot to get to this point. They sharpened a lot of the previously rounded edges. They added a camera, so now there's an ultra-wide, standard, and a telephoto. They've combined the power button and fingerprint reader from the old FlexPi into one button, like we see on many other phones. They've also added a much larger earpiece at the top for phone calls on both sides, where the last one just had tiny slots. They also added speakers to the top and the bottom instead of just the top, so now it can create a stereo image no matter what orientation it's in. And they've improved a lot of rotational responsiveness and stuff in the software, so flipping the phone over to use either side isn't quite as unreliable as before. And then they've completely reworked this hinge and the pieces around it to dramatically improve it. So the old hinge cover was pretty rough. It had this rubber material that creaked and folded, and you could literally feel parts of the underlying hinge through it. This new one is massively different. It's this intricate weave of metal teeth now. So from the back, from the top and the bottom, you can see how everything fits together as you fold it. It all folds and slides into place nicely, and it's actually now folding completely flat in this satisfying clap. Then there's some strong magnets holding the two sides together, and you'll even notice the two sides are thinner, and the whole package is thinner and lighter and more well-built, more refined, and feels more quality. And yet, after all of that, opening this phone sounds like this. I mean, closing it, still fine, but I feel like it shouldn't sound like that. Like, it just doesn't feel correct. I don't know. Maybe it needs to warm up over time, because I do have the original FlexPi here, and this one used to make more noise, but now it doesn't actually make as much creaking. So maybe if you use it enough, eventually this one will stop making so much noise as you open and close it. But I don't know. Also, two FlexPis in the same room. That's probably pretty rare. Weird flex, but okay. But it's not even about this rough hinge. Look, like I said at the beginning, it just doesn't feel like the tech is anywhere near ready for this specific style of outside folding screen. So, as we know, there's a couple different versions of foldable phones. The big fold, the smaller clamshell vertical fold. A lot of them have really interesting promise, but they all have one thing in common, which is that they fold in and they protect that soft, delicate, foldable display on the inside of something. When you do this fold on the outside like this, not only is it obviously not protecting any of this precious screen anymore, but it's also the most difficult to make it look good, because you can't hide any tricks or anything anywhere. Everything is always exposed on the outside. Like, you might remember Motorola's trick with the Razr, which is tucking the display into the chin when it folds shut to avoid a really tight crease when folding it flat. Or all of Samsung's tricks, the brushes and the loop to fold it inside to avoid a crease in their version of a hinge. But with the FlexPi folding out like this, there's no place to do much hiding of any tricks. The phone's stretched over this hinge on the outside when you're closed, and when you're using it, it's open fully flat when you're using both sides. It's just the most difficult version, technically speaking, to get right. So on one hand, I do want to applaud Royole for trying and giving us this much improved second version, But on the other hand, it seems like now with this massively improved version and this still being the experience you get and it's still being unprotected and very vulnerable, it seems like it's time to stop. Is that crazy? Like, I want them to keep working on hard ideas like this, but I feel like we're learning our lesson, and the fact that alternate form factors are evolving so much is showing us that there's other better possibilities with the folding display tech. Like, it's crazy. It's a very 2020 conversation, which isn't can we make folding phones work anymore. Now it's more of which version of a folding phone is the best way to do it. That's the new question. But here is a little thought I'll leave you with. In my exploration of like every phone that's come out this year, I've had to try a lot of not so great phones, so you don't have to. But in the press release for the FlexPi 2, in the press release for this phone, they compare this new thing they've built with the thinner sides to the wings of a cicada. It's right here. I'll link it below if I can find an online version of it, but they compare it directly to cicada wings. And while at first that's kind of an odd choice of a comparison to make, I think it's actually perfect. Maybe accidentally perfect. So hear me out. So first of all, yeah, they picked the cicada because it's actually a very well-liked animal in China, almost like a lucky animal. But, okay, fun nature fact. Cicadas' wings actually have a natural super hydrophobic protection layer over them, like a bunch of tiny wax nanopillars is what I call them. They're one of the strangest wings in nature, but they work really well. So water droplets, when it rains, roll right off of them. And actually when they get dirty, when dirt gets onto them, water coalesces and because of surface tension basically grabs the dirt and just rolls right off the top. It's like a natural self-cleaning process. And then on top of that, those wings and that hydrophobic coating are the only biomaterial on planet Earth known to kill bacteria. So the way it works is, I promise there's a point to this, but basically all those little hairs are so small and so close together that water droplets that form on them aren't small enough to fall through them, so they just roll right across the top and glide off the surface. And that's also true about bacteria. Bacteria aren't small enough to get through all of those little nano pillars, and they're actually sharp enough that a bacteria's outside membrane will be punctured by them and it'll just fall apart and die. So all of that like protection on top of a cicada wing that naturally occurs is like a protection layer that you just don't see anywhere else in nature. So in other words, the cicada's wing is super thin and light, but it has a super high-tech protection built in. And the Royole FlexPi doesn't. And that's what it needs. That's that extra layer of protection that something like this outside folding screen tech actually needs to be useful. It needs something that hasn't been invented yet. So yeah, that is it. That's my thoughts. Sorry there's more bugs in this video than Cyberpunk. But really, I think the point is when we're trying to discover like new things to do with smartphones, and the more exciting they get, the more ways we discover are good, we're also finding the ways that aren't so good, and we can sort of eliminate them or at least wait until the tech is good enough to like bring the idea back. Because like I said, this version tends to like look the coolest. Kind of bugged for a second there, but it tends to look the coolest when it's wrapping around on the outside. And that Huawei Mate X that we've all been waiting for, that I've only really seen like in professionals' hands and in YouTube videos, that also seems like it would look really cool, but I don't think it's the best way to do a folding phone. And maybe you'll have other thoughts on that, but that's my experience and my impressions from using the FlexPi 2. In the meantime, right now, all this phone really has in common with a cicada is it's much louder than you think it would be. Anyway, okay, the bad jokes are over, I promise. I'm curious in the comment section if you could let me know which alternate form factor you are most interested in. For me, it's actually the Rollables, and I haven't gotten to see one in person yet, but these new rollable phones that sort of unfurl like a scroll, they might have the same unprotected problem as this does, but they're also not trying to do a fold flat and a hinge. They're more, I don't know, it's just different. I want to try one and see what that's actually like to use, but also, of course, It's just more of like variable aspect ratio. So anyway, I'm curious what you guys think. Are you into the swiveling? Are you into the clamshell? Are you into the Galaxy Fold style? Let me know. We'll chat about it in the comments section. But yeah, that's been it. Just a quick thought on this outside fold. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys very soon in the next one. Peace.